I'm pretty sure what a lot of people want. For me to talk about the whole walkout, I'll just read questions from chat, I guess. Do I agree with the walkout and the demands? Okay, so let me go through the walkout and the demands, and I'll let you guys know. Blink twice if you're being held against your will. Nah. Why do I personally care about the demands? Okay, so these are the two questions I saw that I really like. So I mean, let's just go through the timeline, okay? Riot killed the tier 2 scene. I'm gonna call amateur or academy tier 2 because it's the easiest way to represent it. Okay, tier 1 is the highest level within that region, that's LCS or LCK, and then tier 2 is a level below that feeds into tier 1. Okay, and you can be demoted and promoted, you know, between these two because it's still competitive, it's just a level below. So Riot killed tier 2, and they did, in my opinion, a really bad job in so many ways with how they approached it. So they didn't give anyone any notice. If you're going to make a decision like that, that's going to affect so many people's lives. People who've signed leases, people who've made plans, most importantly, people who've like situated themselves in a certain place, expecting their contract to ride out to the remainder. Like there's no sign that like tier 2 is going to be killed, and then all of a sudden, you know, all their lives are just completely uprooted and disrupted. It's like, it's pretty fucked up. Like, I don't care what really people say, it's still pro players, right? Like they're amateur players, but they're still professional players. And definitely you deserve at least some level of like warning that your entire scene is going to be exterminated. Do I think that amateur or like, you know, tier 2 scene with challengers, or what is it called, NACL, was good? No, I think it was completely dog shit. Actually, I think the fact that the shittiest academy players are getting paid like you know, 70K and upwards, the worst academy players, the fact that the scene had almost no viewership, but it was getting constantly pumped money into, just created so many problems. A lot of teams didn't want to be in it, but they're forced to be in it. That's not competitive. There's no competitive integrity in forcing teams to field rosters that they don't care about or want, because they know that like the bottom line is they're not going to make any money on it. They're not incentivized to care about it because there's no skin in the game for them. So I think the fact that teams are being forced to have academy teams was always a stupid idea. Maybe there was a time where all 10 teams were willing and like they wanted it, but then as soon as multiple teams don't want that requirement, which happened 5 years ago, I don't think that it should have been a requirement. I think there would have been a way better system. Natural selection, like it's a competitive environment. So there's a whole bunch of problems. There's too much money in it. It costs too much. There's no returns. People are like, it created all these problems. Like you guys hear about like contract jail for a lot of academy players, being, you know, signing 3-year contracts, having ridiculous buyouts. That's how the team recoups. If you're an org and you're spending 300, 400, 500K, and I'm not making these numbers up, like that is actually very normal to spend like 300 to 500K per on your academy team. That's like honestly a minimum. Then how are you going to make any of that money back? You're not going to make it back. Sponsors don't give a fuck about academy. Doesn't matter if you have the best academy team. That's not adding any value to your sponsorships. Okay, that's so. Just throw that out of the window. You're not making any money off additional fans either. There are no fans of, for example, Cloud9 because their academy team is doing well. So how are you monetizing this situation that you've been forced into? Realistically, guys, it's by contract jailing and having ridiculous bouts on your players. So like if you are in academy, the way you're going to recoup that money is by selling your best players to an org, and you're going to sell this academy player's contract that goes for like 60K, for like 500K, because that is the only way that you can even be remotely breaking even for that year in academy. So how is that good for anybody? If I was an academy player personally, I would feel like this fucking sucks. If I join a team and I do well, there's a pretty high chance that the only way my team is going to be willing to let me go is for a ridiculous buyout, which is going to dilute the roster that I'm on by taking away their budget, or just completely block my chances of joining an LCS team, because that is the only way for the team to make it financially make sense to let me go. That sucks. The only reason that you would be happy as an academy player, which is a pretty big one, is like, yeah, the paycheck. So, you know, with all that being said, I thought the old system was complete. It was a complete failure. But I think the new system that Riot proposed is just as bad, and it's not acceptable. I do think that tier 2 actually does matter. You know, I played with Buzio, I played with Tenacity. These players came up from academy. Many players came up from academy. I think it's important that there is a tier 2 scene also for community. Like, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, it's just like optics, you know, like people say, why would I care about LCS when LCS, you know, Riot doesn't care about the future of the league because they're not supporting tier 2. It just feels like shit. I don't think any, LCS players should be happy with that because it just makes our league look even more of a joke. International performances bad, but then also like we're the only region without a tier 2 scene. That's just going to kill people's hype for our league like even harder. LCS Academy filled with washed up pros. I mean, that's because 10 teams are required to field an academy team, and there are not really like 50 good amateur players, to be honest. Like I said, it's like people just didn't really care about, like the teams don't really care about having a strong academy team or not. If anything, academy existed just to have like a potential like backup for your main roster. I just don't think it's like serving the purpose that people really wanted academy to serve. Let's see what the LCSPA came back with. Okay, so the talks started between Philip, and I was in pretty constant communication with Philip before the vote. These are the demands, and when I read the demands, I was honestly a little bit disappointed because I feel like these demands are either unreasonable or just like not the right way of coming to the table with something that everyone should want. Valorant style promotion relegation. What does Valorant style mean? This does not mean that players, that teams can be kicked out of tier 1. This really means that, like for example, you guys might be thinking promotion and relegation means the bottom 2 teams in LCS can be relegated out of LCS. Well, then where did their $10 million investment go? They pay $10 million, hand that over. What do they own now? They own a spot. They cannot be kicked out of that spot. Like you can't just, the Bright can't just take their 10 million and be like, okay, bye-bye. Like you lost to fucking Tyler One's academy, like amateur team. That's not what Valorant style promotion relegation is. Valorant style promotion relegation is the league would expand to 2 more teams, and those 2 teams, so instead of 10, it would be 12. And those 2 extra teams would come from tier 2. And those 2 spots, for let's say, it's a 12-team league now, and the bottom 2 teams would be those like temporary spots. Those spots are not owned. Those spots are promoted and relegated between every single split or every single year. Okay, sounds like a cool idea, right? In theory. I had to think about this for literally 2 seconds to realize like there's so many problems with it. Like the upside is that you're going to get to see like the top academy teams play with the LCS teams. You also have the opportunity for those academy teams, for the tier 2 teams, if they're really, really good, if they deserve to be a top team, they can make it to Worlds. That's a Valorant style promotion relegation. Actually, in Valorant, tier 2 teams can make it to Worlds. That's pretty crazy, right? So that's pretty cool. You and your 4 challenger or your 4 bronze friends can make a team, and you can make it all the way to Worlds if you're good enough. That is competitive. I love that idea. Now, in practice, this is actually pretty shit because think about it. The bottom teams in LCS already don't deserve to be here anymore. They paid $10 million a long time ago, and they checked out like 4 or 5 years ago. I think that there's already too many teams in the league, and there's not even 50 LCS level players in the region, including imports. So why would we want to even further dilute the league by adding 2 even worse teams? In my opinion, it's the opposite that needs to happen. Instead of adding 2 spots, they need to somehow find a way to cut 2 teams from the league. I think that LCS should have 8 teams, and that would, it's a supply and demand problem. There's too many spots, and there's not enough competitive teams to fill them. And that's why you have teams that are checked the fuck out. They're kind of coasting, and they're ready to, they want to sell. I don't think that anyone in LCS wants to play with or against people who want to get out of the league. Like that's not a good environment to play in. Okay, so that's my opinion on that. I don't think that I don't think this is reasonable at all. I don't think so. And secondly, it's going to dilute the value of the 10 existing spots. That's what Riot said in their reply to this as well. Okay, so Riot commit to a revenue player pool of player salaries for $300K per NACL team per year. I'm open to being wrong on this, but my very hot take on this is $300K per NACL team means a minimum of $60K per academy per tier 2 player salary. That's just crazy to me. I don't think that the worst academy players, I don't think that you can be picked up and you can be the 99th best player in the league. I put that in quotes because it's not actually like that, because there's roles, there's nepotism, there's people Let's just say you're the 99th best league player in America. I don't think that you should be getting paid $60K per year as a minimum. I'm a huge believer in having obviously a reasonable floor. I don't know what the reasonable floor is. In my head, it'd be $30K per player. But having the ability to make up to $100K per year if you're really fucking good. What happened to tournaments with actual prize pool? Like, why can't tier 2 be tournaments with prize money where the players can win a lot of money? And it's highly motivating. It's highly fucking motivating when you enter a competition and $20,000 in your pocket is on the line. Yeah, I'm like a pretty big believer in that personally. I think it would be fun for the viewers to watch. I also think this is like a pretty contentious topic, but I think that when you allow the salaries to be so high in Academy, there's actually more negatives to being promoted to LCS than positives. Think about it. Right now, or 1 year ago, I shouldn't say right now, a year ago, 2 years ago, if you're an Academy player, you have a cushy job and you're getting paid like 70 or 80K a year, up to like 100, maybe 100K a year, right? If you're a good Academy player. I think that there are a lot of players that have flickered in and out of the bottom tier of LCS. When they get promoted from that Academy position, they come into LCS and it's like test time. And they could be good, but most of the time they get completely ran down and they're not LCS level. And then their value drops dramatically afterwards. Like their value drops like crazy afterwards because people saw them perform poorly in LCS. Why risk it? Like, why risk getting promoted to LCS when you could just take the guaranteed cushy Academy salary? Like, I just know that is like an attitude held by some. You have a lot to lose. You have like your job insecurity in LCS is so much higher than it is in Academy. So that was an old system. I guess I'm rambling right now because within the new system, I don't think it would really be an issue. It's just, like I said, I think 300K per team is like a little bit high. Allow LCS orgs to partner with affiliates for cost sharing. I think Riot addressed this already, and it's already a thing. It's a good idea. Basically, what that means is like partnering with like Maryville University, partnering with like different tier 2 orgs to split the costs, but also to like split the benefits. So, there's more collaboration and it's just easier on the LCS orgs to dip their toes into tier 2. Riot guarantees LCS minimum contracts for the following year for 5 players who win the LCS Summer Finals each year. This is where I started getting like a little bit, I started questioning. I'm like, what does that mean? So then I had to clarify with Philip. Basically what that means is that the 5 Academy players who win are guaranteed to have a job for the next year. And I was so curious, like, who wanted this rule? Is it like the Academy champions C9? Like, I'm not trying to point fingers. Like, I just like don't understand like who wants this rule. It's a free market. You can be completely hard carried to winning Academy finals. It's a competitive market. I don't think anyone should be guaranteed a contract. There are times where people win LCS. And the next year they don't have a team. There are times where people win LEC, I think, and they don't next year they don't have a team. I think like Emperor and like Hybrid had that happen to them. It's a competitive market. I don't know what to say. If you're good, you will be picked up. Institute a 3/5 roster continuity rule to provide players on released NICL rosters first priority in maintaining their spots. Okay, so basically what this means is like you have this org. Your name is fucking Fred. You made Fred Esports, and you have a roster, and all those players won. Those players have a spot in NACL, and you're Fred, and you're like, man, fuck these guys, I don't like them. So you kick all 5 of them, and you get 5 new players, and you still have that spot in NACL. Under this rule, those 5 players, if 3 out of 5 of them choose to stick together, they actually own that spot. To kind of prevent you from having like shitty ownership, or to have a situation where like a team just completely nukes the whole team and still has that spot. I don't know how to feel about that, to be honest. And because I don't feel strongly one way or the other, and I could see like an upside and downside, like I don't really know. And I don't really care. Anyways, I talked to Philip about all these, and the funny thing is, as you can tell, I don't really fully agree with any of these, actually. I only really agree with the affiliates cost sharing thing, and that thing is like already happened. So why did I vote yes on the walkout? Why did overwhelming people vote yes? Actually, I'll tell you guys a story of the day. Like the day we were scrimming until 8. Every LCS team is scrimming, and we have a meeting in 30 minutes. And I'm looking at the LCS Player Association chat. It's a Discord channel. And I'm thinking, there is no fucking way that even 26 people are going to show up. You understand how lazy LCS players are? After scrims, everyone's tired or hungry. You think that a bunch of people are going to show up to this thing and we're going to have 26 out of 50 LCS players vote? There's 15 Koreans. There's a shit ton of other imports. I think they have less skin in the game. They should care less, just naturally not being from the region. Like, understandable, right? Like, a lot of them don't even speak English yet perfectly. To have 26 people even show up is a fucking miracle. Okay, so I show up to this thing and I have my expectations really low. I'm thinking 10 people are going to show up, including my team. And I'm thinking, okay, like, maybe 10 or 15 people are going to show up, and it's even if we all vote yes, there's not going to be enough people even in this fucking meeting to make anything happen. And like, sure enough, the Discord server fills up fucking fast, so fast. And I'm thinking like, what is going on? This is crazy. Like, how many people are here? And then we do a head count. Philip does a head count, and we are 46 out of 50 players are here. 46 LCS players. Like, that's just insane to me. Like, how is this possible that 46 out of 50 players showed up? The last 4 people trickle in, I think. And it's just all 50. Literally all players showed up to the meeting. I was absolutely amazed. If you asked me to bet something, I would have probably bet my life savings, actually. Yeah, I would have bet my life savings that there's no way all 50 players are going to show up. Maybe there's about 26 do, right? For the majority, and all 26 vote yes, but all 50? Like, what the fuck, bro? That was crazy. And so, you know, I was like, something's going to happen. Like, I could feel the magic in the air that night. I was like, something's going to happen here. I did not expect this at all. I don't think anyone expected this. I think Philip was like, what the fuck? There's like way more people here than I expected. Like, players are so lazy. Yeah, that's the story of how I lost all my life savings. So anyways, you know, the vote happened. It was overwhelming. I'm not going to say what the vote was. It was overwhelming majority. I walked out of that meeting feeling like pretty happy. We walked out of that meeting and everyone was... I think it was, there's a little bit of tension, I feel like, but I wanted to say one thing, which is I don't think there's a world where LCS just like continues as normal. Like, how much of a joke would it be if you guys watched LCS? LCS just starts. The stream starts. The players walk out. There's like no, like the casters have to ignore that happening. There's like no coverage of it, and then the games get played between like 50 bronze players. How is that going to happen? Like, just explain it to me, guys. Like, who's gonna want that to happen? I kind of like we we're talking about like doomsday scenarios. Like, okay, what happens when, you know, if there's like defectors? What happens if we're like getting pressured to be replaced on LCS? I'm like, guys, there's like no way LCS is gonna happen. To me, I think it's an empty threat that Riot was like looking at the teams to replace their rosters with like scabs. It's for Worlds, by the way. Summer Split is for Worlds. So you're gonna say the standings for Worlds the first week of LCS, like fucking 1/9 of the regular season games is played by just complete giga randoms? I don't think so. And then Riot came out with that response. I think at this point you guys probably already read the response. LCS ended up getting pushed back 2 weeks. Ultimately, it's not really up to me. I voted yes. So let me actually, I never explained exactly like what I'm standing for, I guess. What I think we all voted on is not these bullet points. I don't want to speak for everyone, but my feeling is that we didn't vote on these bullet points. We didn't say, yes, we support all of these bullet points. We want Riot to support the tier 2 scene. Not kill it, basically. Just and especially in the way that they killed it, with no notice, with no discussion, and in fact just lying to Philip's face about it, lying to the Players Association and getting away with that. We needed to take a stand. I'm surprised. I'm not like super welling with pride, like, oh my god, this is like a revolution, but like I'm honestly just pretty surprised that like we're just sitting here in the comfort of our keyboards, guys. Like, we're not actually like doing anything. So, you know, people are like, man, so brave, like so based. We're sitting at our keyboards. We have our headsets on. We're listening to Philip talk, and he, you know, we cast our vote. It takes 5 minutes. It's and ultimately, like, what we're asking for isn't even really that crazy. It is that we want Riot to support the tier 2 scene in a reasonable way. I don't really want to be part of the discussion of like what that means. But also, like, that Riot shouldn't be able to make changes like that kills people's jobs with no notice and with no discussion. Yeah, that's why we took a stand. I think I'm doing a pretty bad job of explaining it, but that's just a few of the reasons, I guess, that majority of people voted yes. What about the team owners? I don't know if I made this clear enough, but I don't think that the teams should be forced to have academy teams. That system benefited nobody, actually. I think that it's on Riot to spend a small percentage of their money to support the tier 2 scene and not just kind of kill it as it is and then pawn it off to some random org I've never even heard of with some dog shit name I didn't even see. Like, it's like in one of their posts somewhere. But our commitment to the NACL, and it's like framed like we remain committed, and like they killed it. Okay, they killed it. That's all there is to it. They basically just like dumped it in the street, and they shot it for good measure. Somewhere in between the old system and that system is like one where Riot like can still have a tier 2 scene exist. Did I watch Taiwan Steak? I actually did not. And like, I don't know, this thing has been coming to like this really big issue where I guess like I want to say that I care, but if it's the option of standing by Academy and having LCS Summer Split be canceled, like Riot threatened, and just letting go of the situation, I'm letting go. Like, I'm letting go of the situation. I'm not like so gung ho about it that I'm willing to not play Summer Split. So like when Riot threatened to go nuclear, that's a pretty big threat. Like I think every player was a little bit affected by that. It's like, whoa, Riot's willing to cancel Summer Split? I hope the negotiations go well. I'm just telling you guys the truth. You don't think that everyone knows that? Like it's just it is what it is, guys. It's like beating a dead horse because like everyone is in agreement that the old system sucked. The old system is not the way. I think let's find a new system where tier 2 can exist and there can be jobs in tier 2 and it's not on the teams, but it is more of like a free market where a team like this guy's Toast's team can be made and out of nowhere because somebody wanted to be an academy. They actively are seeking to compete in academy, not forced to be in there and given a participation trophy, strapped down, kicking and screaming like you need to find 5 players, bitch, and a coach and analysts and give them food and da-da-da. And he is trying really hard to make his games exciting, right? He has done a great job. It's just one example, but like that's the way that tier 2 should be with support from Riot.